Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast, a competitor's guide to mental health and mastery, your resource for conversations around mental health and the mindsets necessary to master every area of your life. My name is Paul Klingen, and I'm a former Division I athlete that struggled with my mental health until I started yoga, which opened me up to other practices that gave me a balanced approach to my physical and mental health. The goal of this podcast is to inspire others to do the same, train and compete like an athlete, while also having the ability to slow down and practice stillness. When you can do both, you find balance and evolve into a greater version of yourself. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the show again. Took last week off, and I'm excited to be back podcasting again. I'm excited about today's guest. The feedback on the last podcast with Sam Tooley was phenomenal, and if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to the podcast with Coach Sam Tooley. I believe it's episode 43, 44, whatever the one before this is, and is the most listened to podcast that I've had. So definitely, if you haven't checked that one out, check it out after you listen to this one because it's so good, just as this one is so good. A few housekeeping things before I get started. If you're listening to this on Tuesday when it comes out, this Friday I'm going to be releasing the version 2.0 of my 28-day plan. First version had one workout, had some yoga videos that you could follow, and then a bunch of educational material, about 19 pages of different things around training, different things around nutrition, different things about mental health, journaling. This one, I took the ante up. There are now 3 different training splits. So if you want to train 3 times and do yoga 3 times over the course of the week, there's a version for that. There's a version for 4 and 2, 4 training, 2 yoga. There's a version for 5 and 2 if you really want to be getting after it every single day. One big thing with that, though, make sure that one of those yoga days is really a recovery day. You want to be super parasympathetic with that. What I mean by that is make it relaxing. Shouldn't be something that stresses you out, so it's kind of a active recovery off day. But the other thing that's really cool about this program that I've built out is it has customizable drop down. So rather than saying, okay, you have to do a bench press, I want you to do a horizontal press. And I have got some content on my website if you want to check out, figure out what a horizontal press is. But really, there's movement patterns that you want to make sure that you're training. And maybe you don't have the bench press available. Well, you can go to the drop down and select a floor press. You can select a banded push-up. You can select something that mimics that movement that you'll still want to progress week to week. But that's something that I've added to this, and it's really cool. The other thing that I'm going to add that is actually already added is full-length yoga videos, 30, 40 minutes with audio included, where I'm demonstrating, giving you cues. And so it's something that you can actually follow along in your living room, something you can follow along on your phone. Been getting really good feedback on that. So anyway, packaged it all into one thing. So it is 3 different versions that you can follow based off of how you want to train, and then it's customizable based off of the equipment that you have in your gym and the equipment that maybe you feel comfortable using. So really excited for that to come out. 28-day plan 2.0. One last thing, if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, that is available on the website. You'll also be a part of that if you grab the 28-day plan, but that's where I put everything from podcasts, videos, blogs, discounts on merchandise. All goes in the newsletter, all wraps everything up that comes out weekly, so be sure to subscribe to that. And now that that is all out of the way, I'm excited to get to today's guest. And before I do, I want to bring up a point that has been really showing up a lot of times in my life the last few weeks. A lot of people have been coming to me, hey, I want to start a podcast, but it's so saturated. There's so many people with podcasts. And you're right, there is a lot of people with podcasts, and you need to produce a good podcast worth listening to in order for people to listen to it. But I think there's a few things that people miss when it comes to doing something that you want to do, but thinking that there's no space for your voice. One, you have a unique story, and that unique story is going to connect with people. And one of the reasons why I really love this podcast with Officer Frank is his story is really unique and really powerful, just like Sam's in the previous podcast, and people are going to resonate with that story. And we both have the same perspective of one person reaching out and saying, hey, your podcast helped change the trajectory of my life, or I reached out and got help because of you guys being able to open up. That's the ROI that we're looking for in this podcast and these conversations. It's not trying to get $10,000 an episode. It's not trying to get 10,000 listeners. That may happen, and that'll be a bonus. But we're out here trying to change how people think and talk about mental health while also still going through the lens. You'll hear about his story, but the guy is really strong and competes in strongman events, and we both come from this athletic competitive background, but we also understand and really want to promote the value of mental health and making it something that people are more aware of. The other thing with podcasts as well is, like, this guy is all the way over in New York. normally I would not be able to just sit down and have a hour and a half conversation with someone across the country, but podcasting creates a platform for that. So whether you want to start a podcast or you're wanting to do something that you think your voice doesn't matter, there's so many positives that you're not thinking of. And, everything is going to be saturated in some aspect. No one's inventing something that no one's ever heard of or done before. And that's where you just got to take the mindset of like, all right, I'm going to be good at it. I'm going to be great at it. Then I'm going to be the best at it. And when you're the best at something, it doesn't matter how saturated it is, you're going to shine and you're going to be able to get your message through. But anyway, side tangent, rant over. I'm really excited to introduce to you guys Officer Frank. You guys are going to love this podcast. We talk about his foundation, Reps for Responders, and everything he's doing to create a community for people to go and work out, but also be able to open up about things that they deal with on the job or things that they're dealing with at home. And I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'll get right to it. Here we go, Officer Frank. You guys are going to enjoy this one. Officer Frank, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
What's up, Paul? How you doing, man? Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor, and I love your platform to really share my experience. So thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. I had a buddy, he's actually from Boston. He's in LA now, but he shared your podcast with Mark Bell with me. And I was like, wow, this is a really cool story. It's a really cool combination of two things that I think really needs to be shared with mental health, first responders, but then also looking at it through the lens of strength training. And I was watching your video this morning and got me hyped watching you, deadlift and doing all the strongman stuff, but then still having like the vulnerability on the other side to you to be like, there's this other stuff that you also got to deal with beyond just the X's and O's of reps and sets. So that's super cool. So kudos to you for creating what you've created.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Rob, I known Rob for years now. He's a good guy. Known him for 7 years, and that's you're talking about Rob that moved to LA, right?
Yep, Rob Atkin.
Yeah. He's a good guy, and thankful for him to able to hook us up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So fill the listeners in, fill me in. I'm sure there's things that I've missed, but how did reps for responders start, and what does it all entail?
Right. So before I start a podcast, I say, the NYPD, they didn't send me here. They didn't, this is just for me. This is not really for me. This is to share my story and my mission so it can help other people, right? Everyday people. This is nothing affiliated with my job. This is just all about trying to spread the word on mental health and working out and kind of being the strongest physically and mentally you could be every single day. So that I just want to get that message across. So reps for responders, it is long story short, it's gonna be like it is the first responder gym in where I live, Rockland County, Westchester, the lower Hudson River area. I'm about 45 minutes away from Manhattan and Bronx, but no traffic, on a good day. Um, and I went through my own, I was struggling 2018 very hard, 2019, and I just started lifting again, consistently back in September of 2019. So after my struggles and seeing my father's struggle of talking about addiction and mental health, I always wanted to open up a gym, right? But what was really like when I retire? So what was stopping me from opening up the gym right now? Like in 2020, and it's like a lot of people look at things and it's like, all right, well, what's going to stop me? The positives and negatives, but like in reality, like the only thing that's going to stop you is really yourself. So everyday battle is really it is so you hear it's so cliche, you versus you. Well, the only person that can hold you back is yourself. So as I was at work thinking and just driving and everything, I would take notes, everything I see, and I said, reps for responders. All right, the first, it's a nonprofit, and any first responder, volunteer or not, retired or not, any military, of course, veteran or not, active, can use the gym for free, no charge, open gym. And I was like, all right, I like the idea, but how am I going to really get it from paper right into reality? So um, there's a lot of volunteers where I live, firemen and EMS and EMT. So not everyone has a gym in their precinct or in their firehouse. You know what I mean? And it's volunteer. This is not their everyday job. So after talking to a lot of people, and then I had to go through the nonprofit work. It's 501c3 approved. So like I said, it's still in the womb. It's very close. I'm just waiting for the insurance to open up and to get the insurance okay to open up. And right now we'll have a small space, but the goal is to raise as much money as we can now to get a bigger space and really make it I am not looking at it for people to make gains physically, which I am, of course, but I'm looking at those mental gains, right? It's like I want to look at it like a church, like an area to come and a safe haven, right? You're going through a hard time. You don't want to go home. You have a place to go to feel that comfort, to not feel alone, because that's a lot of humans in the mind and the psyche feeling alone. No one wants to feel alone. You know what I mean? So that's really my mission and my goal here. I'm a big statistic guy, and what happened with me, I started reading about my disease, started reading into it, right? I've watched thousands of videos in the past few years, not even before my depression and addiction, just about working out. And I've tried to, I'll self-teach myself these things, but then I like to attract myself to older people, right? I'm 27, so it's guys that are in their 30s, 40s, they've already lived my part of my life, right? I'm not going to go to my friends and ask them for advice. I can, but they know just as much as me. You know what I mean? So it's getting that wisdom from those older people, and I'm very blessed for this opportunity. So um, we're going to have open gym free for first responders and military. If you're a civilian and not first responder, you're going to be able to use the gym as well. But that's obviously going to be charged. And then we're going to have the guy who I'm running it with is a retired second grade detective out of Manhattan robbery and the taxi unit that they used to have. And he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, 35 years. He did 25 years in the street. He's a street cop. He's been all over the city, and that jiu-jitsu is going to be big, right? Tactics save lives. And I'll be doing like strength and conditioning classes, more of strongman type base, because I believe that that's really like the meat and potatoes for um, that correlates so well to the real life of a first responder, right? You're not just powerlifting or you're picking things like you're not just picking up a deadlift bar and dropping it, right? You have to push the sled, you have to pick up a sandbag, you have to pick up a stone, but that mental aspect correlates so well in the real life. If you get down on the ground or if you get hurt, you'll just instantly get right back up. You don't have to think about it, right? When something crazy goes on in the street or in real life, you just want to react, right, to the best you can positively. So we'll do that, personal training, of course, but I really think it's going to be key. And like as you see, I'm trying to build like more of a family type gym, family type guys that are going to the gym. Hey, let's go to the diner before the gym. Let's get a coffee after the gym, before the gym. You know what I mean? Let's trade numbers. So maybe there's things that I can't tell the guys at my precinct or at my firehouse or my wife, but I can trust you, Paul. You know what I mean? It's like, let's try to build that trust up. And we're going to have open first responder meetings. So what's going to happen is it's like an Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. You come in. My goal is to have 3 meetings a week. A topic meeting. It could be on fear. It could be on resentment. It could be on hate. It could be on guilt. And have other guys, I'll open up the meeting, say how I feel about, let's say, fear. And then other guys will talk about their reaction to fear. And then the other topic will be not a topic. That's one meeting, topic meeting. And then we'll have a speaker meeting. I know a lot of first responders in sobriety, come in and talk about why did they get sober? Why are they sober? And why do they work out? Now, not only people that are first responders as well, a lot of popular fitness people in the industry are sober as well, right? Because you can't make these gains and do very well by drinking on the weekends and blacking out. So why are they picking up a barbell? Why are they putting 500, 600 pounds on their back, and explain the mental aspect, not really just to get big quads and big hamstrings and look like a Greek god, right? Right? You could look like a Greek god, but if you don't think like one and you don't think smart, what's really, to me, that's me personally, what's it matter? And then there's a book that I always preach. It's called the emotional survival for law enforcement, a guide for officers and their families. It's by Kevin M. Gil Martin. He has a PhD, and it's about 200, let me just get the exact, not even 200, wow, 142 pages. And I read this book in 2.5, 3 hours straight because it was so interesting to me, and it hit me right in the face. It like punched me in the mouth. Like, wow, Frank, this is you. And this has saved me. And they talk about the magic chair, right? You come home and you sit down on the couch or your chair or your bed and you're zoned out. You're zoned out from everything. You're not even thinking about right now, right? Right. Like if I was in the magic chair right now, Paul, whatever you said to me, I wouldn't think about it because I'm so focused on what happened at work, what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not focused in the now, the reality. And first responder or not, a lot of people have that problem. You know what I mean? So that's going to be a big key component to this to a foundation to this gym and fundraisers, of course. And I'm very lucky. We raised about $12,000 in 3 weeks, and not even 60 people. Barely 60 people donated. So not a lot of people know about this, but the support is huge. you're getting over what was the value? It comes out to $200 per donation is the average. So like it's just great to see the support. And this is only from my Instagram, right? Not even from anything else yet. So that's really basic what reps and responders entails, and it's gonna go from there.
Dude, I love that. I love the thing that sounds like you're really focusing on is the community and having an opportunity for guys to come, maybe not even guys, but it's first responders. I'm guessing it's females too, but come and be
Right,
vulnerable.
right, right. Guys and
And,
girls. And sorry,
and
there's one thing, yeah, right, that we're gonna have first responder female meetings only because there's guys that want to talk about guy things and girls that want to talk about girl things, and they might not feel comfortable sharing that. So that's also going to be a big aspect of females first responders only, to come in and talk about their issues. So sorry for cutting you off, but I didn't want to forget about the females as well.
yeah, no. Well, I know you were doing both, but it's it's so cool to create that space for people to be able to feel vulnerable and have those conversations because maybe they go home and their spouse can't relate to them or they've got kids and they want to be able to go and be present with their kids, but until they let go of something, it's going to affect them. And I have never heard of that saying the chair or the couch where you go and sit. I've just pictured in the movies everyone's always got like their chair they go sit on, they just space out. Uh, but I mean, the idea too of it being really functional. And I was watching your video, and strongman for me, for what you do as a first responder, for me feels more functional than just what people call like functional training, because you literally do sometimes have to pick up 250-pound human, drag them to safety, and you might have something else on top of you as well. And so it's not just good enough to be able to do lunges. You got to grab really random objects and move them. And so when I was seeing that, I was like, wow, that makes a ton of sense. But then I also love the element that you talk about too, is like you got to mentally be strong. You can look like a Greek god, but if you're a mental, civilian or whatever the opposite of a Greek god is, it's all for naught. And so just want to reiterate, man, I love the foundation that you're creating. I love the community that you're creating. And I think it's also really cool too that you've been able to do this off the back of your story and be able to open up about alcohol, open up about depression. I would be curious for you, just you mentioned being 27 and you have so much more wisdom to gain, but over the last few years, what have you learned about depression that maybe the 22, 23-year-old version of yourself was like, whoa, I looked at this the completely different way.
Right. It's funny you say that because when I was 22 or 23 and you're young, right? You think you have the world by the balls. You think you know everything, right? And especially at that age, you graduated college. I'm lucky that I got on the police force at 23, so I'm still a kid. 27 is still a kid. And I love the quote by The Rock. In his 20s, he didn't know anything. In his 30s, he's finally to get to know himself. In his 40s, he finally feels comfortable. So if people love The Rock, right? He's a great person to look up to. If they just take back and think about that, like, wow, it took The Rock over 40 years to feel comfortable in his own skin, right? So it's like people in around our age in our 20s, like we don't know what's going on. We don't know who we are. We're learning. And it took me 27 years to to kill my ego, to destroy it, and feel comfortable in my skin, and to really, and I'm learning every day, right, Paul? I I'm just taking my life experiences and I'm learning from them. And that's the problem a lot of people don't have. Something dramatic or drastic can happen and they're not they're not taking this as a learning experience. So I'm still learning every single day. I have so much more to learn, but I can feel a little more comfortable as each day goes on. Who is Frank, right? And not focusing on who is Paul or who is someone else, right? Because that's only going to slow me down, slow my growth down, maybe even backtrack me. But it's really about who you are as an individual. And in your 20s, you don't really know much. It's just not a lot of life experience. Like I said before, right? I went to the older people. I was just lucky with that feeling to get that life experience. How'd you get here, and go from there.
Yeah. How hard has was it initially to recognize this is the ego and I need to let it go? There's a lot of books that are coming out now, like Ego is the Enemy, and
Right.
coming from my yoga background, it's always like you got to let the ego go. I think there's times when it does serve you because it keeps you like pushing forward, or you want to be presented in a respectable manner. You got to have some sort of self worth,
Of
but
course.
it's
Of
the
course.
ego that keeps you from talking to someone. It's the ego that keeps you from hearing other people's advice and that
I'm too good. I'm
wisdom
too
that you
good for
need.
that person. That's
Yeah,
exactly. To backtrack that though, real quick, that when you asked me how I thought a 22, 23-year-old, I didn't think depression was real, man. I just always said to myself, and I had friends that were depressed, How could someone be so sad, so upset, not work out, not eat clean for a week, 2 weeks, a month, years? I didn't think it was really physically possible. I didn't know until that was my learning experience. Like, wow, I lived it. So when people say they're depressed, you know, and then you can look at now, I can look at someone and even notice that they're depressed without them even saying a word to me. So it is very real, and it's you know, I- I'm blessed that it happened to me, because if it didn't happen to me, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Um, so definitely, my younger self definitely was a big egotistic, and not really not try. I always try to help people with my background, but more of like my way or the highway type of deal, right? Um, really kind of that kind of thinking, and take advice with a grain of salt, and then just try to figure it out on my own. Again, you can't do this on your own. The best trainers in the world, the best athletes in the world, they have trainers. They have everyone. They have a team. Donald Trump, you like him or not, he's sober. His brother died. He was an alcoholic. He never picked up a drink of his life in his life. He's a president of the United States. He has a team, and he's a billionaire. What else? You know what I mean? So it's like, look at that side of a person, of really how they present themselves, right? You know what I mean? So the ego is just like and the crazy thing, Paul, is like it can come back at any time, right? I could build this reps for responders. Hopefully, it takes off. And what if I become an egotistic, douchebag? I don't know. I'd never want that to happen. But 10 years from now, we could be having a different conversation. So you always got to remember, what are you feeding? Like, that quote where are you feeding, yourself, or you're feeding the wolf of the ego? You know what I mean? So what you're doing every single day, you're feeding something, whether you realize it or not, you're feeding a part of your mind. And it depends on where it's going in the unconscious and conscious mind. It all depends on, and the crazy part about that, Paul, is you control it both. That's the craziest part, man. You have no idea that you control both. So it's powerful stuff, man. Very powerful stuff. That could be a whole podcast on itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wish we had more time. The thing that I love about training, because I think it's something that everyone can get a hold of, where it's like you work out, you lose weight, you get stronger, all these things. There's
It's for free.
parallels, there's parallels to it in everything. So I like using the saying, like, you got to sweep the floor every day. If you don't work on your fitness, you're going to lose it. If you don't work on your mental health, you're going to lose it. If you don't work on these things about you as a person, so you mentioned your ego, it's like you gotta sweep the ego every day, because it can come back. Same way as, an old injury can come back if you don't work on it every single day. And that's why I love
Exactly.
fitness. That's why I love, football or sports as an analogy for so many other things in life. Relationships, right? You got to work on it every single day.
Right. Like that was perfect. You said that. Like your podcast with Johnny, if I pronounce his last name wrong, Johnny
Hecker, yeah.
Hecker. Do you think he really wanted to sit on the 30-yard line every day of practice and hit fucking 20, 30 field goals, 40 field goals? I don't know his routine, but he's got to do it, right? Because his ego might say, all right, well, I can skip these 10 kicks. And then you never know, when it comes down to game time decision, those 10 kicks, he might miss it. But now he's doing those 10 kicks. He's going to feel more confident, and he's feeding himself powerful. So, yeah, Derek Jeter, does he want to sit in the cage and hit freaking an hour, 2 hours a day? No. But you got to do it, just like it's a skill, right? You can lose, like you said, you can lose that at any moment. So if you can stay on top of those type of what you want to do in your real life situations, and it's so cliche and so corny, but practice makes perfect, and no one's ever perfect, but you can get to where you want to get to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing you've mentioned too is just about addiction with alcohol. And I know personally people who've struggled with it. I know I grew up thinking it was really cool to like binge and have all these, like you black out and you're like, "Oh, I'm so cool." And it's like, that's not cool. And I'd love for that to be a conversation that society has in a way. But what was your experience like that as well? Because I think it is really powerful to hear, especially like guys, be like, "Hey, I was doing it this way and I had it wrong."
Oh, well, first, I'm a grateful alcoholic, right? So I'm happy this happened to me.
Yeah,
If I would have known this stuff when I was 15 or 10, or I still want to be in this position. I had to go through hell, man. I had to go through this crazy experience to be here.
yeah,
Um, but I had the same mindset, drinking, man. Drinking has been around for centuries. It's been around for thousands of years. It's just so, back then, no one knew the effects on the brain. No one really knew. You get drunk, you do stupid, but no one really knew the causes of alcohol, especially for the human psyche, which is which is a downfall for a lot of people, man, that can cause depression and anxiety. And if you already have depression and anxiety and you drink, you're just feeding that wolf, right? You're feeding that part of the ego. You're feeding it negative, just very negative. So I call it rat poison. So it is very, very toxic. And there's so many people, famous people, who are sober and you wouldn't even know. And they're the best in their craft, right? Donald Trump, Tom Hardy, crazy actor. When he was in his 20s, he went to rehab. He didn't know who he was. He said he was a crackhead. Samuel L. Jackson said he was a crackhead. Eminem is in recovery. He has a whole album about recovery. Um, Bradley Cooper, Brad Pitt. I can go on and on. And I just named the best of their craft, right? That Demi Lovato is a great singer. I just saw something that Bieber has been sober since 2014. He was a
Yeah.
disaster up to 21 years old. So it's
Hmm.
like, I call it the human kryptonite, right, Paul? There's only a matter of time. It's going to get you, man. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your wife, your girlfriend, your career, relationships. Hell, you might even lose your life. And you're just so blindfolded. You're blinded by this alcoholism because it's really just taking over your mind. If anything alters your mind, it's a drug. So alcohol is a drug, and I believe it's the most powerful drug in the world because you can only die from alcohol withdrawals. You can't die from heroin withdrawals, um, and that's a scientific fact. Um, and it's so easy to get. It's so the access, and it's so you can walk around the streets, not in New York City, and drink, and it's not a big deal because it's socially acceptable. And obviously, back in Prohibition, they tried to get rid of alcohol, but they couldn't because it's all about the money. So it is very powerful, and I wish people could see it as a drug. But some people might listen to this podcast and say, "This guy doesn't know what he's talking about," and I can say I know what I'm talking about because I lived it. There's a lot of people that and doctors and stuff, they study this and stuff, but did all your psychiatrists and all your psychologists live what you lived? You know what I mean? So if you see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, don't go to one, right? If you go to look at colleges or you look at jobs, you don't just go to one. You apply to a lot to see what feels right for you and get that connection. You know what I mean? Don't always listen to what the psychologist has to say because he doesn't really know you. He's giving you advice to look at it a different way. So you personally know yourself. So that's my best advice on that. But alcohol is very cunning and powerful, baffling. You know what I mean? It's strong, very strong. And
Yeah.
like I said, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah. Well, and you make a really good point out about the money and how it literally is a fabric of our society. And it's so ingrained in having a good time. It's so ingrained in sports. It's so ingrained in, a way to relieve stress. You come home, you crack a beer. And, I think for some people there is a way to do it in moderation. But to your point, it'll get you. It'll get everyone. And, it's you don't want to ever be rigid like prohibitions, like we're going to completely get rid of something because that just swings the pendulum one way. But there's
Right.
very few things that are positive about it. And to your point, if someone already struggles with something mentally and then you're altering the brain, it's just going to accelerate whatever problem someone's having with that. And you don't know what the situation of your brain is on alcohol unless you go there. And so then that's where it becomes, even more scary.
Right. So the United States, about 50% of us drink socially every weekend, right? Now some people can have 2 or 3 beers and put it down. Some people can't. So out of that 50% that does drink on the weekends, 10% of those people are alcoholics. So it's not as high as people think it is, but it's still a high number, right? 10%. If we have 100 people in a room, 10 people of those people are alcoholics. That if they pick up a drink, they're going to have 8 to 10 to 20 drinks. But definition of an alcoholic is not how much you drink. It's not what you drink. It's what happens when you drink, right? So if you're losing relationships, if you're losing jobs, if you feel depressed, if you're getting suicidal thoughts, if you're waking up in the morning and having panic attacks, saying, "Oh, I hate myself," right? You're feeding that ego, and you're feeding not that ego, but you're feeding your brain negative thoughts. It's not helping. Then it becomes a pattern, right? 21 days to break a habit, and then it becomes a pattern to even break out of. Like when you talk about, dude, when we were in our 20s, junior in college, senior in college, a little after, it's like you woke up hungover. You're like, oh shit, here we go again. And it takes about 3 days for your body to get rid of that alcohol mentally and physically. Think about all the food you eat when you're drunk. Then think about the food you eat when you're hungover. So it's not just one day you're damaging. You're doing it for days. And those days are going to add up to years. And then those years are going to add up to your death. So when you do drink, constantly, you're just killing yourself. It's a slow suicide. And I don't want to see people kill themselves, and that's another part of this gym. There's no reason for a slow suicide. Don't get me wrong. If you want to go out, you have a great event, Christmas, your birthday, you open up this gym and people want to drink and have fun, go ahead. But if you're acting erratic and you're acting very irrational, then it's just, it just, you don't have to live that way. And that's why I'm really trying to preach, there's always another choice to cool down, like you said, stress release, right? Because when you drink, what's happening? You're releasing serotonin in your brain. You're releasing those endorphins. But you're also doing that with 3 10-minute walks a day after every meal. You're also doing that with a podcast and a conversation. You're doing that with a text messages to your mom, to your girlfriend. Hey, just want to know I love you and I appreciate you. So there's so many different outlets. We like working out. Maybe people like painting. Maybe people like playing video games. That's another addiction for another topic. But anything in moderation, right, Paul, is not that bad for you, right? You can't deadlift every day. You'll never get gains. Your body can't take it. So it's everything in moderation, but it's just recognizing that problem, right? The first step is admitting that you are powerless over alcohol. That is so powerful. It takes years for people to do that. Paul, sometimes people don't even get to that step. And I really do feel empathy for them. I feel bad because they never had a chance in life because of alcohol to
Wow.
their full potential. Full potential, Paul. And these people that are ODing and dying on drugs, Mac Miller, Avicii fucking slit his wrists because of alcohol, right? And these guys were the best in their craft. We don't know if the Mac Miller or the Avicii that passed away, 20-year-old kid, we'll never know because he passed away from this terrible disease and this devil juice. It's really the devil. It's the dark side of the force, right? It's the dark side that's consuming you, and you don't have that outlet, right? People that are in recovery, but people that are going through addiction, they might not have been as blessed as me to have the team that I had, the family, the friends, the support, the gym. That was my outlet, right? People are, oh, Frank, you have 500 pounds on your back. You're trying to deadlift 600. It's like, well, yeah, because I know if I'm not lifting, I'll be at the bar for 2 or 3 hours. See, so I know myself, right? So I'm able to accept, I know who I am a little bit now. To come out and say that to you, Paul, right? I know if I'm not lifting, I'll be at the bar. That's why I work out. No other comment, no other question. I'll walk away or next topic. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
where people really need to develop that mentality and not really care what other people think and say, why are you really working out or why are you, why are you really drinking as well? Because drinking is just the cause of something else. You don't just drink to drink. There's another issue if you're an alcoholic. There's, the root problem is why you're drinking.
Right.
We don't wake up and say, well, I'm going to black out for 4 days in a row and I'm going to feel really happy about it, and I don't want to be, we don't wake up from birth and be like, all right, you are now you're now addicted to heroin. You're now an alcoholic. No one wants to grow up and be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. What you're talking about is so true in that it requires vulnerability to admit that you don't handle it well, or to really question, like, is this something that is a good combination? And a lot of people don't want to admit that because maybe it's weakness or how people will perceive them. But to what you're talking about, like, that
Right.
self-awareness
The
is
ego,
so
the ego, right?
so huge, so key. uh, I'm curious about this. Do you feel like your empathy, or like how you see criminals or druggies or alcoholics, or like how that has changed in your professional life? Because to your point, some people, maybe they have mental health issues and it sends them in a spiral, or they never had a chance. Like, how has that changed, and how do you view that
Right.
situation with your career?
Oh man. When I first became a cop, I always had empathy for people because I'm a big believer in the product of your environment, right? We learned that in middle school.
Right.
Um, and then survival of the fittest, Darwin. But after going through I guess we can call it the Great Depression, right? In 2018, 2019, it was really dark, really bad. Going through that was like a rebirth, right? So the hero journey is us. We're the hero, and there's a book out there called The Hero of a Thousand Faces. Um, and it basically, you have 1,000 faces, man, in your lifetime, and you are reborn in every part of your life, no matter what happens. You fight through the hero journey, and I got through my little journey, and I was able to fight through it and become a better person. That's the main goal, right? You come out as a hero, and the negative part of that is you're addicted to the drugs or you're dead. So when I look at people now, 20% of United States or the world I think it's 20% of basically at least the United States population, and this is a fact. It's close. Suffers from PTSD, anxiety, depression. 20%. So let's get three more people in here, and let's see who says I've had depression or anxiety, because I can raise my hand, and I'm one of them. 30. That increases to 30% for first responders. So now you just took a 10% leap. So I studied criminology in college. So it's the study of why perpetrators, why criminals act the way they do. It's more the psychology and the sociology, you know. Emile Durkheim, the father of sociology, and then Freud, and all those big time guys who learn about their theories and everything. So it's it's very interesting because I don't know if people are going to agree like this, but we're not so different than criminals, let's quote it, or perpetrators, right? It's just we make the smarter decisions that are not going to impact our lives or hurt another human being. You know what I mean? So when I see someone, let's say, like when I arrest someone for drugs, right, or someone arrests someone for drugs, one, I know right off the bat they're suffering, right? They're escaping reality. They have an internal issue, you know. Um, and my mindset has changed that they're not I hate using that term crackhead, right? Because they're a person. They're not a crackhead. You know, you might love food. You might love playing Xbox. So what are you, an Xbox head? What are you, an Oreo head? You know what I mean? So it's like, it needs to change also for law enforcement that these people, yeah, they might be assholes on the street, but there's no an assholes to you for an hour, but they're not, it's not really personal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of people are suffering, and a lot of people don't even know. You know, there's a lot of cops and firemen that are suffering, and other people around them don't know. They might not even know yet, but they're suffering. They're doing habits or that they're suffering, and they're not even affected by. So that's why I'm really trying to talk about this, to raise awareness. But those numbers are so big, man. Anxiety, depression, PTSD. Everyone is addicted to something. I don't care what people say. I'm not addicted to anything. Well, you're lying. That's your ego talking. You're addicted to something. Every day you wake up, you make coffee. You're addicted to it. Cut it off and see what happens to your mind and how you feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like that manning up quote to what are my bad habits and what are my good habits. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's it. My life has definitely changed on that. And homeless people on the street, you know, we're going to work on a project where we're going to take some homeless people out to lunch, and we're going to talk to them, and we're going to say, you know, we'll take you out to lunch, but we need to film this for a half an hour, 45 minutes. How'd you get here? You know, you were once a person living with a family and everything and loved ones. Why are you homeless? Why are you like this? Like, how did it happen? And try to get them to change their mind, and to see, you know, that these people that you walk by every day, they're people. They're not just some random creature under a bridge or something, you know? You don't know. And that's the problem with today's society, even on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Everyone loves to comment negative things on people's things. Well, you don't even know this person. So why are you commenting millions and thousands of miles away? If it is it really bothering you that bad? Well, then you should look inward, and you have an issue, right? So it's like, what is the point? If you don't like a page, then don't follow it. Don't comment on it. Let other people do what they want to do. All right. If it makes you that mad, talk to someone about it. Right. So that's kind of like a huge point of like, if people just started focusing on themselves and just changing one habit a day, over time, that habit's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 habits. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm opening up my own gym now, or I'm able to run a mile in 5 minutes instead of 7 minutes, right? I'm just doing one extra thing a day that just adds up, right? Brick by brick. You know, the Roman Empire wasn't just built in a week or a month. You hear that all the time, right? So it's consistency. It takes time. Look at The Rock, 20 years old, out of Miami University, $7 in his pocket, living with his mom. All right. It took him years and years and years to get to where he is, you know, and the Rock's not out drinking all the time. Yeah, he drinks his tequila here and there, but The Rock's is not an alcoholic, so he can control it. Um, Sobriety is the best bless. It is the what you talk about working out. Sobriety is a blessing, and it's free. It is the
Yeah.
best free gift in the world, and it's right in front of you, man. You just got to
Yeah.
put in a little work. And even if people aren't addicts yet or not, right? Because you always have a chance to become an addict. Um, Recognize that it's very powerful. That it's for free, and it sobriety will really make your dreams come true. Even, you know, realistic dreams come true. So it's just a blessing, and surprise. It's just a blessing, man. You know,
Yeah.
I love to talk about that.
Absolutely. I think you make a really good point too, with everyone being a product of their environment. Like if we grew up in a different family, different neighborhood, we could be on the street. Obviously, everyone makes their own decisions, but the statistics become much more different if you're raised in an environment that is much more likely for you to succeed, and in a healthier household or something to that fact. So you make a really good point where it's
Amen.
like we don't know where someone's been, we don't know what they're going through. Someone might bump into us and be an asshole on the street, but maybe they just lost their mom and they're battling with their own thing too, and we just go and feel that by calling them bitch or something. And it's like, man, just like empathy, love people, and it goes a long way. You've touched on it a couple times, and I heard you mention this in your video, but your favorite quote is "Do or do not. There is no try." Or you really like that quote. And I'm a huge Star Wars guy, and so I'm curious on like if you are too, and because you've touched on mythology and human psyche as well, and I just love the parallels between like it's almost like it's telling stories, right? Star Wars, there's the hero's journey in that. There's the light side and the dark side. There's the shadow self and the light side self. Is that something that you see from like a mental health standpoint and that journey that you're talking about?
100%, 1,000%. Yeah, big time. Because not even Star Wars, Harry Potter fans, Lord of the Rings, all these movies, they have a hero journey, and they all go through some up, type, down depression. It's just so relevant, right? And the power, Lord of the Rings, the ring, right? You get the ring, and you that ego feeds you, and then you start turning into someone else because you feel that power. You know, Star Wars is huge. George Lucas kind of created Star Wars from a psychological standpoint from that book that I told you, the Hero of a Thousand Faces.
Yeah,
He loves that book, and that book is it's the hero journey. Luke Skywalker is the hero of the movie. It's his journey. Anakin, becoming Darth Vader, and then you have the new hero in the newer movies, Rey. So and then you have Kylo Ren. Look at that internal battle, man. That's crazy. That internal battle is dark side, good side, dark side, and then he becomes, spoiler, shut it off. He becomes Ben Solo, right? And he's able
yeah,
to die knowing that he passed away his true self. Again, people die from drinking and overdose. They're not dying their true self, right? So that's definitely a crazy storytelling has been told throughout time, like whatever religion you believe in, it's just so popular and so back in the 700, 800, 900s. But it just throughout time, storytelling is huge, right? Like it's you sit around a fire, you talk about the gods, and it's that vision and what you kind of believe in. And now you can look at like the story of Jesus. Greek mythology, you have Zeus. In Norse mythology, you have Odin and Thor, right? But the Buddha, right? They all are almost telling the same story, which is very. It really just it's crazy that it just if you think about it, like Jesus was on the cross, right? Odin, he hung himself from a tree for 9 days. He sacrificed his eye for um, intellect to know everything. The Buddha was said that he walked through a rainbow and all of his suffering, right, all on top of a rainbow. So it's more of like you know the picture, like the language meant to interpret like like symbols, like we talk
yeah,
about, and like the little things I shared with you today, like a piece of writing I was working on, like you know Odin sacrificed himself on the tree as Christ sacrificed himself on the cross. The suffering is the shedding of immortal substance to be reborn. Again, what did we talk about before? The hero journey, right? Being
yep,
reborn. Now this is mythology. We don't know if this actually happened, but it's just it's just from a mythological standpoint to be reborn.
yeah,
Um, to be reborn into a spiritual, not substance or the eternal. Odin sacrifices eye for knowledge. In a sense, the Egyptian god Horus. The all-seeing. Odin is called the All Father. And then when you look on the back of a dollar bill, right? Those eyes, the eyes of Horus on the pyramid. So this stuff has been looked, the freaking pyramids on the dollar bill. So it's been happening thousands of years. Um, so it just shows, it goes way back to the oral traditions before there was writing. So we don't know really how old this stuff is, which just really intrigues me. Um, but from a Star Wars and the human psyche standpoint, I mean, it's right in front of you if you study it and you look at it. I mean, I'm a nerd, so I've done a lot of just studying on Star Wars itself and how it relates to the human psyche. And I have a close friend that we talk about this stuff. And Yoda drops, so if you think about a spiritual leader, or you want to, you're in sobriety, you want to be like a Jedi Knight, right? You want to, that's kind of like in recovery, like your Jedi Knight. You're using what you learned in your life for wisdom, um, and to spread that wisdom and knowledge. Now, there's a lot of quotes from Yoda that I can nail on the point where people will be like, "Wow, he said this, and I don't even know what it means." You know what I mean? So I could go into that if you want me to. It's all to you.
No, it's totally fine. But you're totally right. Yoda will say quotes, and you're like, you could put Buddha behind the quote, and people would be like, oh yeah, Buddha said that. Like, no, actually, that was Sir Yoda, from Empire Strikes Back.
Right,
And so I don't know.
right, right.
I find that
So
really funny.
it's great. It is great. The do or do not try, I love it because once you say I'm gonna try, you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage,
Yeah.
right? So do it or don't do it. Work as hard as you can and be realistic about it. Well, if you really gave it 100%, did I really give it 100%, Frank? You know, did you really give it 100%, Paul? And if you did, then you can. All right, this is not realistic for me. I did my best, and that's it. Um, but to really talk about like depression and anxiety, which is, you know, Luke, real quick, Luke will, and there's not really a good or a bad side, right? So Anakin became Darth Vader as a mechanic. Like, he was a machine. He never followed his own path. That's the issue right there. A lot of people don't follow their own path and they get stuck. So
Mm,
there's everyone has a good and dark side inside of them. It's just which one are you going to feed and which one are you going to be able to control the best. So if you think about it, Vader is a machine. He followed the Emperor. So he never was able to find his own path. But at the very end of the movie, right, there's a little light in him, and he was able to express that and go from there. So there's always light and dark inside of people. It just depends what are you gonna feed? Like, well, Luke said to Yoda, "How do I know the good side from the bad?" And Yoda said, "You will know when you're calm, at peace, passive, right?" So I look at that as sobriety. You're not putting drugs or alcohol into you. You're doing yoga, you're working out, you're passive, you're peace. A Jedi, and this is so powerful. And then that's it with the Yoda quotes. A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. And then Yoda says, "Clear your mind." So a lot of people could use their ego as an attack, but a Jedi, a true Jedi, really is, trying to pass wisdom on. And if you get attacked, for defense, and then you got to do what you have to do. But no, a true Jedi never just goes up and attacks for no reason.
yeah.
So it's very, very powerful stuff from from Yoda. So that's really, really, really powerful.
Yeah. The one of my other favorite ones was when he pulls the ship out of the water and Luke says, I don't believe it. He's like, that is why you fail. And you think about going up to a bar. You got 500 pounds you're trying to lift off. If you're 98% sure that you're going to pull it off, you're not going to pull it off. You got to go in there and not an ounce doubt that you're going to do it. Otherwise, it's literally affecting your ability to go in and execute, that rep.
Right. And I tell athletes and people before competitions, you need to think about the competition weeks before, man. You can't think about it the night of. You need to
Mm-hmm.
mentally prepare yourself and it's part of the Jedi journey, the hero journey. Picture yourself on that platform. Picture yourself, whatever it is, on that bodybuilding show. Picture yourself winning at least to the top, picture yourself doing what you can do. Right. So before I went to the gym and and let's say I'm pulling 500 for a triple, once my coach sends me that program, I'm thinking of that all week, and that's an obsession, and that's an addiction, but I'm mentally putting myself on the platform before that. And I need to control that now, right? It's controlling our thoughts. If I'm driving or if I'm at work and I think about that, I feel a little tingly. My fight or flight's going to kick in. I can feel my adrenaline pumping. So I need to relax
Yeah.
and pick the right time to when to really think. Like when I have a competition the week of, if I think about that competition while I'm driving to work, I feel my hair is going up. I usually try to find a place in my day, if I'm taking a shower before bed, where I can really get peace and quiet and picture myself on that platform, on that stage. And that's what a lot more people, hopefully they can do, is they spend hours in the gym, but then are you spending at least 20, 30 minutes? Are you spending an hour mentally preparing yourself for that competition? Why? Ask yourself, why? Why am I doing this show? Why am I doing this, right? It's for me, but there's also another reason why it's driving you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a lot of athletes too, having something that you're working towards gives you that motivation to continue to work hard. I feel like for at least for myself, if I don't have a competition that I'm training for and I'm just kind of training aimlessly, then it's like, what is this working towards? But for you, and you're like, all right, I think in April, right? You got another competition coming up.
Right, at the end of April, I'm going to do my first competition in like the 181 weight class.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like every time you go up to the bar, like there's a reason behind it. It's not just going off into the abyss. And so anyone listening, they're like, I lost motivation or I'm not training or competing for everything. Like, give yourself something to work towards, and you're going to see everything exponentially like light that fire under your ass.
Exactly, 100%. As a competitor or an athlete, if you could plan out your shows in the beginning of the year, like every 3-4 months, and you got something to look forward to, right? And it might be a PR. Obviously, if you're very competitive and you're a strongman, powerlifting, bodybuilding, CrossFit, you want to win, right? You want to place. But remember, you also need to beat your old self. You need to beat those old numbers. You really
Yeah.
need to. I'm fighting against Frank of 2019, who was depressed, who was drinking, and now here I am doing all this stuff. Or I'm fighting against Frank back when I was powerlifting 4 years ago, where I need to beat these numbers that Frank used to do. And over time, if you look at it like that way, you're going to be like, wow, I'm really beating my old self and getting these great numbers. And as you focus on yourself and those numbers expand and get larger, you're going to be beating other people.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people shouldn't be looking on their competitors' Instagrams or Facebooks. What are they pulling? What are they doing a month out? No, 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 no. Focus on what you did a month ago. And I guarantee you, it might not be now, but when you're 30, 35, right, as it says, a man is 30, like around 35, that are strongest. And if you're a young kid listening to this and your teens or 20s or like me, 27, think about all the work you'll put in until once you reach 35 and you'll look back 7 years ago and be like, wow, this is something else. I've been focusing on myself, and now I'm where I want to be at this moment. I'm not where I ever want to be, because no one can ever be where they really want to be 100%, but I'm very content and happy of who I am right now.
Yeah. You're putting in the work that's got you on the path, and that's all you can ask for me
Right.
is to be on the path and know that you're doing everything you can to
And I agree with you 100%.
chase that version of yourself that you'll never hit them, but the best you can do is just keep working towards it.
Exactly. And again, being sober is on that path. I created this path myself. If I was drinking, I didn't think I didn't do drugs. The only drug I ever picked up was alcohol. And uh, I wouldn't be on this path, man. I would be on someone else's path, right? I would be in jail, institution, or death, man. People have already done that. I would have been there.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. And I didn't really talk about my story, but I didn't drink every day. I drank socially, but when I got really depressed, I started drinking by myself, really cutting it off. And I was like, wow, now something's going on, because I didn't never drink by myself. Now I'm coping with alcohol. Now it's an issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's powerful. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you're really excited for with the foundation, with yourself? I know you mentioned the event in April, but anything coming up in 2020 that people can help support or that you want to bring awareness to?
Um, yeah. I mean, the Instagram is reps_for_responders. Our YouTube is reps for responders. We have a GoFundMe, um, for reps for responders. Um, I have the show at the end of April. I'm going to participate, which is really cool, at the police and fire games in San Diego in June, a push pull.
That's cool.
And that's going to be really, really something cool to do, to get back on the powerlifting platform. And the plan is, if I qualify for nationals at the end of April and place top 3, then I have a chance to go at the end of June to Minnesota to do nationals, the USS. So that'll be really cool, and that's what I'm looking forward to. But from a reps for responder standpoint, I'm looking towards. I want this place to be the mecca of, hey, I'm in California, I'm in Florida, I'm in Pennsylvania, but when I come visit New York for anything, I want to be able to come here. If it's 2 a.m., I'll open up the gym for you. If I don't know you and you're listening to this podcast and you give me a DM, no matter what at the time, I'll take the time out of my day to give a 10, 15-minute, 20-minute phone call. Try to get you the right way of thinking and try to hook you up with the right people. But we're going to do a cool fundraiser, Deadlift for Depression. And the goal is to give back the money to NYPD had 10 suicides last year in 2019. 228 police suicides countrywide. So that's almost one every 36 hours taking their own lives. And the suicide rate, of course, not first responder or not, I feel the same. It's just, don't do it. If
Yeah.
you're thinking about doing it, give me a DM, give Paul a DM, and I'm going to help you the best I can, because I know I've been in a very dark place. But we're going to do the deadlift for depression and basic, like, weight classes and how many reps you could do in 60 seconds. And the money we raise is going to go to the families that they lost, the 10 New York City police officers, and donate to them. So we have a lot to look forward to, and a lot of cool seminars and speakers. So definitely hit us up and reach out to us. Or, if you're feeling upset, also reach out to Paul, and, guys like us, we have to give back. You know, it's our what we think about. It's why we're put here on this earth. So
Yeah.
we're very confident with that. So thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you for coming on, sharing, creating this amazing platform. It'll be really fun to watch it grow and, watch you continue to grow and compete as well, man. I'll be pulling for you as you're pulling those weights up.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah.
I like to end these podcasts, you know, talking mental health and good serious stuff, but spin it a little bit and get a little bit to know more about your personality. So I'll just rattle off like kind of like 4 or 5 questions to get to know you. What's your favorite movie? I think I know the answer, but I'll let you go.
Oh, you're gonna think I was gonna say Star Wars.
You can say
Uh,
whatever you want.
my favorite movie. Oh man. I mean, Bronx Tale, Goodfellas. But recently, in the past few years, when I was really depressed, I related with The Departed, with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah,
Because here's a guy who is pretending to be someone he's not, and he's on all these SSRIs. And I'll admit I was on a bunch of SSRIs. I was pumped like a lab rat for 3-4 months, 6 or 7 of them. All right. So now imagine your mindset. You're on these SSRIs, and then I cut cold turkey because the SSRI was making me feel like a zombie. It wasn't me. It was making things worse. But then I was drinking. So now you're all over the place. Leonardo DiCaprio, same thing. He was someone he wasn't. And I had a very crazy job change. And that's kind of where my anxiety and depression came in, right? I've never had this depression before. It's a situational depression that turned to a major depressive disorder. And that's what happened with Leo. He was pretending to be someone he wasn't. And it ultimately killed him. So I would really relate it with the Departed movie. Any first responder or not, check out The Departed because it's a classic. Mark Wahlberg, there's great actors in there.
yeah, definitely a good one. Favorite artist or album? If you're gonna pop something into the car right now.
Oh man, I mean, growing up, I love Biggie Smalls, even though way before my time. If I'm gonna pop something in right now, I guess I'm gonna have to go with Eminem, right? Because he tells his life like a true story, and he's not afraid to say how he feels and what he went through. He's still here,
Yeah,
so probably lose yourself, right? You got one shot, and he
that's a
failed so many
classic.
times. But that's the thing is, he never gave up, right? So remember, so many of these actors, so many of these artists, so many of these athletes, they failed. They struck out on the bottom of the ninth. They lost the Super Bowl, but they didn't just give up. They kept going because you have to. You don't want to waste your precious time, and you can't give up. So please just think about those type of people.
Yeah, for sure. You just hit your PR and you got to go smash some food because you're starving. What are you going to go get?
Oh man, yeah, there you go. Probably definitely steak, sweet potato fries, and cookies and cream ice cream. 100% hands down. It's my last meal.
What kind of ice
Or
cream?
yeah, cookies and cream.
Like, is it like a Ben and Jerry's one or is it a local
Oh,
one?
oh, oh. Probably like a Jersey Shore type ice cream. There's so many different like
Yeah,
homemade spots that you can't beat Jersey Shore ice
yeah.
cream. How you doing? But yeah, it's really the
Okay,
Jersey, New York, Italian one there.
cool, cool. Love it. All right, we got one more. Um, any athlete, dead or alive, if you could meet him, sit down, have dinner, who would it be?
No, hands down. Once you said any ath, I knew what it was. Tim Tebow, hands down.
Tim
You know,
Tebow. Okay, cool. I love the guy,
I
so
mean,
that's a great one.
I mean, here's a guy that was national champion, right? Uh, talked about he made it to the NFL and was getting ripped on, destroyed, and he just was so positive. And I can't believe how positive he was. And here he is, right? Game one, was it? Broncos beating the Steelers. It was a miracle. And then was it John 3:16 or what he threw for was the
Yeah,
same exact yards. So everything was the same, which is a miracle. So you don't have to believe in God, you don't have to believe, right? But you follow Tim Tebow's path, the way he talks. Um, he's very I mean, the guy's closest to a saint, walking saint there is.
yeah,
He's
he's
very
inspiring for
positive,
sure.
and he's someone I followed for since even he was a backup to Chris Leak in the Florida Gators. So I mean, I've been following him for a long time. So Tim Tebow is definitely up there. Just to shake his hand would be a blessing.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, appreciate you giving us a little bit of background on you. And again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and just sharing your story and everything you're doing. Really, really love it, man.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me, and remember everyone out there, if you are suffering, talk about it. Don't hold it in because it's gonna really you're not helping yourself. So reach out to Paul, reach out to me, reach out to your family, friends, and get help, because everyone is in this together. We're on the same earth together, so let's try to work together. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the support, and everyone have a safe night, and God bless.
All right. Take it easy, brother. Thank you. Before I let you guys go, just want to say thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Be sure and tag Reps for Responders and myself on social media if you're listening to it and got something out of it. Also, leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and subscribe. That's how we help grow the podcast. That's how we help get people on, like Officer Frank, so that we can help spread this message of mental health and of mental mastery, all through the lens of being a competitor and still wanting to go and achieve great things, but being more mindful about how we do it. I really appreciate you guys listening all the way through. I'll catch you next time on the Down Dog Athletics Podcast.